Okay, so then the next season is the season of Christmas. The message of Christmas is that Jesus is born. The light has come into the world, right? And we love this story all the way up until Christmas Eve, right? But in fact, the season of Christmas begins on Christmas Eve and extends for 12 days until Epiphany. And so what might it be like for you to intentionally create space to extend the season of Christmas past December 25th, right? What might that be like in your environment? So the season of Christmas is about Jesus being born. The color is often white or gold, and anytime there's that color in the liturgical calendar, it usually is a festival that talks about God's direct inbreaking. God has come directly into the world, right? So we have a white on Transfiguration Sunday, we have white on Christ the King Sunday, we have white on Easter Sunday, and on the season of Christmas. Because white is a sign that the light has come, that God has come into the world. And we use this big word incarnation to talk about Christmas. That God didn't come into the world as this sort of ethereal presence or a supernatural power. God came into the world as a human in the form of a baby. With this message to humanity, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. How many times does the angel say that to somebody who's in the nativity story? Do not be afraid. So Christmas is that opportunity for us to say, in what ways has God come into my world? In what ways has God given me that message, do not be afraid? Who are the unlikely characters who have told me that God has not forgotten me? Who is it that is bringing this new message to me in ways that I haven't been expecting? In what ways have I been called to be the bearer of Christ in the world in ways that feel way too big and overwhelming, right? As we think about the story of Mary and the story of the shepherds and what all of those characters that are in that narrative. So these are opportunities for us to say, what's my part in this? How do I hear this message of do not be afraid in the season of Christmas? Which I think gives us opportunity to have some honest conversation about Christmas, right? It gives us an opportunity to have an alternative conversation that allows for honesty and vulnerability in ways that I think we often say, well, we're not going to talk about our pain until after because it doesn't work with our fancy decorations and our holiday parties. So what might it be like for us as community to observe that holiday in a way that allows for that openness and that care for one another? So these are some questions that we can think about during the season of Christmas. In what ways has God come into your life? Using who? With what messages? Bringing what kinds of gifts? Okay, and then after Christmas, then we have Epiphany. The season of Epiphany, or the time after Epiphany. I'm a little bit confused as to what color Epiphany is. I think it's white, sometimes it's green. So it's one of those. Epiphany starts with the baptism of Jesus, right? So we know this story where Jesus has come out of the temptation in the wilderness and he goes to the River Jordan and he's being baptized. And then again, there's the voice of God breaks in and says, "This is my son, listen to him." Epiphany then ends with Transfiguration Sunday, where Jesus is up on the top of the mountain with his three buddies, his couple of disciples, and his three historical figures. And once again, that voice comes in, breaks in, and says, "This is my son, listen to him." So Epiphany is this season where we say, Jesus is not just a human. Jesus is the Son of God. And so the stories that we hear in the gospel readings are about what I call aha moments, right? When I talk to kids about Epiphany, I say, in a cartoon, when someone has a great idea, what happens? How do you know that a cartoon character has a great idea? Because they have a light bulb over their head, right? Epiphany is the light bulb season, where you have all these stories of people encountering Jesus and having light bulbs go on over their heads. Aha! This is someone unique. So you have the baptism of Jesus, you have the wise men visiting, You have the call of the disciples. You have some miraculous healing some years. When people encounter Jesus, they have epiphanies that say, God is not just here on Christmas morning. God is still here. And so we hear the voice of God saying, this is my son. Listen to him. So it leads us into this question of how have you heard that voice of God saying, listen to Jesus. Listen to Jesus over and above these other voices that may be calling for your attention. Get up on that mountaintop away from stuff so that you can have an experience of Jesus' divinity where you realize, Jesus is someone, not just a human. Jesus is something special, right? What have been those experiences for you?